I am not God, but I am something similar. Roberto Duran. Talents come from poverty, and boxing proves this opinion best of all, because boxing has a long history and tradition of being a poor man's sport. Residents of the hopeless slums and rugged ghetto have little choice. You can stay poor, or you can take a path that will lead to prison or bring you to the grave. But there is a third path for the chosen ones. This is the story of a poor boy from Panama who discovered talent and became one of the most intimidating boxers in history. Those who once went to the boxing ring with him, they say he has hands of stone and eyes of the devil. This is the story of the great Roberto Duran, a fighter who showed no mercy. You can hear the following phrase in relation to a champion: he was born for this. But most of us have no idea in what conditions future champions are born. Duran was born on June 16, 1951, in the slums of El Chorrillo. At birth, he was named Roberto Carlos Duran Samaniego. Roberto was raised by a single mother. Clara Samaniego was a native Panamanian. Roberto did not know his father. Margarito Duran Sanchez, an American of Mexican heritage, was stationed in Panama for the U.S. Army at the time of Roberto's birth. About his father, Duran says this: "Daddy made me, and then he left." The small room that he lived with his siblings was so cramped that he had to sleep on the street. The family was simply surviving. From 6, and according to some reports, from 7 years old, Duran was already working. He danced on the streets for a pittance. He fished, worked as a shoe shiner, sold newspapers, and even stole. Anything you earn under such conditions can be easily lost. That's why he had to learn fist-fighting skills before he became a boxer. When Roberto grew up, he joined the older boys who went to the boxing gym. This is how Roberto recalls his childhood. "I was born in the worst place you can possibly imagine. I wasn't born to be a delinquent. By God's law, I was born to be a boxer." Once, in an attempt to steal some coconuts, Roberto snuck into the farm of one millionaire. It was the farm of businessman Carlos Alida. Duran had no idea he was robbing his future manager. That's how they got to know each other. Alito was a man of rare acumen. A former poet and composer, he was a media mogul planning to get into the sports business. Carlos made money from everything: cockfighting, horse racing, baseball. At some point, he decided to try his hand at the boxing industry. 4 years later, Duran met the businessman again. Roberto was taking part in an international tournament in Germany, and Alida flew there to choose a promising boxer. He saw something in Duran that even his family didn't. He saw the potential of a great champion that would bring him big money. When Duran was 16 years old, he made his professional debut as part of the lightweight division. Now he had a patron, and the guy could finally concentrate on training. Roberto's first fights were held in his homeland of Panama. Watching the unstoppable guy, who relentlessly pounded his opponents, proud commentators explained "manos de piedra," which means hands of stone. This is how Duran got his nickname. Roberto was boxing a hell of a lot. Sometimes only a couple weeks passed between his fights. During that period of his career, he didn't meet many high-level rivals. But some victories are worthy of special attention. The first significant opponent was Ernesto Marcel, another Panamanian boxer who would become a champion in the future. But in their head-to-head showdown, he couldn't do anything against Duran. The fight with former two-time champion Hiroshi Kobayashi was a serious challenge for Roberto.
Every time he gets hit, it ignites a nice right hand that time by the Panamanian. Look at the shots to the body screen, who's getting busy now, and Kobayashi, long looping right hand. Neither fighter visibly in any trouble at any time, with the one exception of that liver shot that Kobayashi nailed Duran.
Duran finished the spectacularly beautiful fight with a stunning knockout.
Because he's fatigued, good body shot, right, left, and big right hand. Look at that, he backs him up, big shot.
A new world boxing star was born to the applause of the Panamanian spectators. At the peak of Duran's boxing career, Carlos Alida introduced his fighter to Ray Arcel, the legendary American coach. The first time Ray saw Duran, he was shocked. According to Arcel, the guy had a natural talent for boxing. He ordered the entire entourage not to change Duran's style. "Leave him alone," said Arcel. "Let him fight." Ray was able to explain an important point to Duran. Boxing is not a brawl. It should look like an art. Under the guidance of Arcel, the 21-year-old Duran won his first title in June 1972 at the famous Madison Square Garden in New York. He faced the champion Ken Buchanan. The Scotsman was not just the best lightweight. At the time, he was at the top of the pound-for-pound list.
In New York with a supplementary point system that has not scored a knockdown. And yes, it is. Johnny scores it a knockdown.
Roberto shocked the champion. What happened in the beginning was not the worst news. The real problems were still ahead for Ken. Duran, for all the beauty in his boxing, could be very dirty. And in that fight, he broke every boxing rule. Buchanan was a first-class boxer. To beat this Scottish gentleman, Duran had to be a street fighter. For Roberto, it was no problem. After all, it was his nature. The fight ended in scandal. The low blow that Duran landed after the bell went completely unnoticed by the referee. In fact, the third man in the ring that day did not see any fouls at all. But even more remarkable is the fact that Duran's own reputation was not negatively affected by the dirty win. Buchanan was taken to the hospital with serious injuries, and his team's protests were not successful.
What do you think it was that made you win?
El corazón. Esto fue lo que me hizo ganar la pelea.
He said his heart,
Y
very
esto.
much.
Y los puños.
His
Que
heart.
mientras dan esto, hay esto.
He said,
After becoming champion, Duran began to systematically destroy the lightweight division. He destroyed one by one, and not necessarily in championship bouts. By holding interim fights, he saved on paying his sparring partners and could prepare for the main fights by picking up similar styled challengers. Roberto was a very young and starving fighter who had to support a large family. For Duran, it was something like a repast, where the champions and top fighters were the main course. The appetizer was the rest of the challengers who got in his way. During his dominance in the lightweight division, Duran has defeated former champion Gus Ishimatsu, defeated future junior welterweight champion Saul Mambi, and destroyed tough contenders such as Hector Thompson, Masataka Takayama, Ray Lampkin, Edwin Verrouet, and Lou Bizarro.
Misericordia que está recibiendo de parte del campeón titulado y vuelve a derribarse, se desploma, no es de un golpe.
Golpeándolo fuerte, mano, piedra ahora, llevando hacia adelante. Y cayó el Panamericano. Cayó el Panamericano. Jesus, fought. 27 seconds left. Oh, and a Calgary right up with a right hand uppercut. Man has off it. Oh, he hurt. Right hand and down to the hook. Jesus right hand. He's down. He's down. He's going to get up. 15 seconds left in round 14. Oh, he's out. Oh, look out. He's out now. They should have knocked him.
Duran was at the head of the lightweight division for 6 years. He demolished the entire elite of the weight class with his hands of stone. During that time, Roberto became a nearly flawless boxer. But there was a fighter who was able to challenge the unstoppable boxing machine. And that talented man was Esteban de Jesus. It was 5 months later that Duran became champion. For the rest of the year, he decided to skip title defenses and make a few interim appearances. Roberto chose de Jesus as one of his victims. Duran then bit off more than he could chew. As soon as the bell rang, the boxers hurried to deliver the first messages. No, it could not be called a reconnaissance. Their goal was to shock their rival and gain a mental advantage. De Jesus did a better job.
Both have terrific records, and there is Duran down, believe it or not.
That amazing left hook could have broken anyone, but not Duran. Roberto, however, cooled down. He had to deal with the power and skill of Esteban. In the third round, de Jesus's hits again shuddered Duran, but Hands of Stone didn't falter and hit a right cross. Throughout the battle, the intensity of the action increased. Duran was successful on the inside, but when Esteban used his footwork, Roberto had difficulties.
10 seconds to go in round 4. Duran was rocked again.
Duran and de Jesus had a close fight in the remaining rounds. The Puerto Rican kept the points margin, which led to the first defeat of Roberto Duran. Thus was born a legendary trilogy that was significant in the formation of Hands of Stone. In a year and a half, Duran had firmly established himself as a dominant champion. But the loss to Esteban left him in a tizzy. It is said that after the first fight, Roberto sobbed like a child in the locker room and was so angry that he smashed the wall with his fists. In the rematch, the stakes were raised. Now there was a title on the line, a reputation, and responsibility. 16,000 Panamanians came to see their boy win. No one would accept defeat. You have to hand it to Esteban de Jesus, who came to foreign territory without fear. He said, "I beat him once. I will beat him again." Round 1. The fight immediately takes on a brutal tone. Roberto misses 2 left hooks, and after the second one, he falls to the canvas. That's how Esteban demonstrated to him the phenomenon of déjà vu. At that moment, the thought ran through the minds of Roberto fans. Didn't Duran draw conclusions? He did, and the first one to feel it was de Jesus. Unlike the first fight, the Puerto Rican had no space. He had to go for broke. The desperation with which the boxers fought was astonishing. Duran fought like his opponent was guilty of all his misfortunes, and Esteban reciprocated. Only in the boxing ring will you see so much legitimate brutality, which carries an exceptional impression. It leaves you mesmerized and enthralled. 4 years later, the decisive third bout was held, this time in Las Vegas. And one thing had changed. Roberto was still the WBA champion. He had slayed all the challengers. De Jesus, meanwhile, had won the WBC title and defended it 3 times. The undisputed lightweight title was at stake. The fight script was different too. Now the ring was dominated not so much by boxing rage, as by boxing instinct, rationality, and coolness. It was obvious how well they knew each other. The trilogy against Esteban de Jesus best revealed the rise of the skills of Roberto Duran.
La izquierda y la derecha por Duran. Está en malas condiciones el boricua y no se defiende. Lo va a matar, por favor. Ese hombre no puede continuar y no va a seguir.
Duran won by technical knockout in the 12th round and became the undisputed champion. Esteban is not as famous as other fighters that Roberto faced later. This trilogy stands alone in Duran's career. Only true boxing fans understand how gifted of an opponent he defeated. This was Duran's last performance in the lightweight division. He vacated the titles and moved up to welterweight, where he was already waiting for a new challenge. In 1989, after a round of life's twists and turns, de Jesus was on his deathbed. He had AIDS. Slowly dying, Esteban wanted to say goodbye to his nemesis, so Duran didn't hesitate to rush to him. At the time, not much was known about the disease. There was no certainty that AIDS was not airborne, and for Latinos, it was considered very shameful. But Roberto didn't even hesitate to hug and kiss the exhausted de Jesus. He told him, "For me, you will always be a great champion." This photo demonstrated the kindness of Roberto Duran, who previously had a totally different reputation. Roberto never forgot his origins. It was also the reason for the formation of his personality. Roberto had a reputation for being an absolutely merciless man. He fought with such ferocity, it frightened and delighted at the same time. The sports columnist Pete Axthelm once said, "What monstrous past produced this ferocious machine of destruction?" People were scared of Duran, but for some of the boys who were starting to struggle with their own fear, he was a role model, for he reeked of strength, power, and absolute fearlessness.
Yeah, that's who I wanted to be. Like, I know I wanted to be a fighter, but then I saw Roberto Duran. I said, that's who the fuck I want to be.
Man, Duran.
I said, that's who I want to be. A mean motherfucker. People scared to look at him. The devil.
In his autobiography, Duran wrote, "I was Mike Tyson before Mike Tyson came along. Fighters would take one look at me and crap their pants. Leonard would be no different. It was starting to dawn on the Americans that they'd never come across anything like me before. This eerie, deadly being with his jet black hair, dark eyes, and bad intentions. El Diablo, they called me. The devil." In 1975, Duran brutally knocked out Ray Lampkin, who was later hospitalized. A reporter asked Duran if he regretted putting his opponent in a coma, to which he replied, "Well, I was out of shape, because next time I'll send him straight to the mortuary." When Roberto moved up to welterweight, where Americans reigned supreme, he solidified his reputation as an anti-hero. And given the complicated political environment between the US and Panama, Duran was honored to intimidate spectators and his opponents as well. Roberto stepped up to the welterweight to take on Sugar Ray Leonard. Their fight was inevitable and was the beginning of a new boxing era called the Fabulous Four. But before facing Leonard, Duran made 8 performances. In one of those fights, he defeated famous Carlos Palomino.
Is going to turn, if the tide is going to turn at all, it will have to be right in this round. There it is! Great fight.
Professional boxing is not just a sport. For promoters, it's a business. At the time, the fight between Duran and Leonard, dubbed the Brawl in Montreal, was the biggest box office event. For spectators, boxing is a performance with a hero and an anti-hero. Every single detail matters: behavior, looks, statements. A few days before the fight, doctors noticed an irregular heartbeat in Duran's ECG readings. After additional testing, he was cleared for the fight anyway. But what his mentor, Ray Arcel, said doubled the demonic aura surrounding his fighter. Heart problems? Nah, that's a mistake. It can't happen. Duran doesn't have a heart. Behind all the anger and aggression that was constantly emphasized, many people forgot how cunning Duran was. He said a lot of things to Sugar Ray before the fight, forcing him to play by his own rules. Duran's anger doesn't stop there. He's looking for Wilfred Benitez. Duran said something to him that can't be translated, but effectively it means, "You will be my next victim." That's what Roberto Duran is all about.
Gave it to Duran, 145, 144, as close as we anticipated.
Do you respect Leonard?
Respeta a Leonard.
Sure. Leonard, you my friend now. You my friend now. Te quiere mucho.
This was the peak of Roberto Duran's career. A man who went through poverty, hunger, and overcame many hardships. Being on the boxing Olympus, every champion believes that the worst is over. But at that moment comes the most difficult, sometimes insurmountable trial. Duran returned to Panama as a national hero after the most significant victory of his life. He had been the pride of the nation and of Latin America before, but his victory over the top boxer in the United States had special value. Duran arrived on the president's jet, and more than 700,000 fans were waiting for him at the airport. The whole country was celebrating, as was the winner himself. Duran drank a lot, ate a lot. His trainer, Ray Arcel, said, "Have you ever seen how fast a dog eats? That's how Duran ate, because he denied himself everything all his life." Duran was the king of boxing and thought he could continue to feast as long as he wanted. That's when Ray Leonard triggered a rematch clause. He trained in the gym, while Duran put on extra pounds. Promoter Don King and manager Carlos Alida were already rubbing their hands together and counting the proceeds from a speedy rematch. Duran was simply faced with a fact. He had to fight right now. Roberto realized it was a dead end, but he couldn't refuse the fantastic payday. He only got $1.5 million for the first fight, and that was a lot of money for Duran, not to mention the $8 million he was guaranteed now. The rematch took place 5 months after the Brawl in Montreal, and it was a completely different story. Roberto couldn't get inside Leonard's head like he did last time. He couldn't impose an inside fight. With every round, Hands of Stone came closer to defeat. Ray Leonard has learned his lesson from the first fight, and now he has allowed himself a little teasing over his famous opponent. In the 8th round, something happened that no expert in the industry could have predicted. Duran has always been an icon of Latino courage, but in this fight, he refused to continue. The Hands of Stone fans got a shock, just like the rest of his team. Howard Cosell heard the phrase, "No mas," but Duran claims he said no sigo. But whatever the words, the meaning is the same. Roberto gave up. Great boxers can't accept defeat, whatever it may be. They are so charming in their excuses, and Duran is no exception. This was a test that he failed. Roberto has been through the fire and water. He passed all stages of the physical trials, but failed the test of pride, fame, and popularity. Nor did Duran's fans. They turned their backs on him, calling him a whore and a chicken. His house was stoned. In an instant, Duran went from national hero to traitor. The Panamanians launched a reign of terror. Duran had to take his lion every time he was going to leave the house. He would walk the lion on a leash like a big dog, and only then would no one touch him. When the pressure subsided, Roberto returned to the ring and got several victories. However, he would no longer fit the welterweight limit. The next super fight he held in the light middleweight division. His opponent was the Puerto Rican master, Wilfred Benitez. Panama's leader, Omar Torrijos, proposed isolating Duran so he could prepare for the fight. He was taken to the island of Coiba. It was 15 miles off the mainland, with sharks swimming around. The Isla de Coiba has been the site of the Coiba penal colony. I was a prisoner among prisoners. To make a phone call, you had to climb a mountain. There weren't many thieves, but many murderers. I was scared. The prisoners walked around with machetes because they used them to work in the mountains. Whenever I came outside, I had a guard with me. I didn't sleep well. At 3 a.m., the roosters would start singing. I was tearing my hair out. It was a bad idea to go there. He lost the fight to Benitez by decision. It was Duran's third defeat. And now those who had been part of a great team left Roberto with his problems. His manager Carlos Alida, whom he called Papa, decided to end the partnership. Cornerman Freddie Brown also left Duran. Ray Arcel, however, left after his loss to Leonard. He returned to the team before the fight with Benitez, but only to leave for good. He wrote Duran a letter in which he said, "Life is like a book. There's a beginning, then there is a middle, and then there has to be an end to the story. And so must the career come to an end. I hope you will see fit to end your career." In the next fight, Roberto sensationally lost to Kirkland Lang. And that's when even Don King left him. The once powerful fighter, who instilled fear and terror, turned into a man to whom they felt pity and ridicule. The public loves a winner. Duran's career is a prime example of this. Once, after a series of defeats, Roberto attended a boxing event, and there people insulted him again, and his fighting spirit hit rock bottom. At that moment he said, "One day I will come back to Panama, and you will applaud me again." In early 1983, Duran set the course for a comeback. He defeated the famous Mexican Pepino Cuevas. The victory, which is often ignored, was really important to Duran's career.
Trying to keep him off with the jab. Good right hand. Duran sticking the left and fought for the ropes. Now he's trying to block him. Oh, that's a right hand. He's out on his feet. Didn't be any power there. It almost looks like the Cuevas in the Hearts fight.
You can punch it that way too.
There it is, that right hand. One punch.
Beautiful shot.
Duran following up, but it was clearly that right hand that got Cuevas in all kinds of trouble. Down he goes. His punching power.
Deservedly so. He should be excited.
On his birthday, on June 16th, at Madison Square Garden, New York, Duran faced the champion Davey Moore. Exactly 11 years ago, Roberto won his first lightweight title in the same arena. Now he claimed the belt in the third division. Unfortunately for Moore, that day, the ruthless old Duran returned to the ring. The same eerie, deadly being with his jet black hair, dark eyes, and hands of stone. The victory returned Roberto to the top. As he had promised, the crowd applauded him again. The entire Madison Square Hall chanted, "Duran, Duran." And the boxer's sincere emotion was a guarantee that the stigma of disgrace had been removed forever. After defeating Moore, Duran got back his confidence and desire to fight the other members of the Fabulous Four. Roberto decided to get another title and moved up to middleweight to fight the dominant pound-for-pound king, Marvin Hagler. The fighters showed a competitive, aesthetically beautiful, and highly intense bout. Duran's defeat was expected. No one gave him a chance, but how well he performed was a surprise to many. It was the first defeat of Duran for which he was not criticized. 6 months later, an inspired Roberto stepped into the ring to fight another king, Thomas Hearns.
That's all. This fight is over.
After the crushing defeat, Duran retired from boxing for almost 2 years. In 1986, he came back and got 2 wins before fighting Robbie Sims, the half-brother of Marvin Hagler. The aging legend was written off and Robbie was never considered a star. The fight was coldly received by the public, but the drama-filled and highly competitive fight exceeded expectations.
We know he has a good chin. Then he goes outside, he tries to switch back, and that's when he gets caught off balance. Now he's a southpaw. Oh, big left hand by Duran. And it's time to fight him out. Sims has got him propped up over there, firing away, and Duran ineffective here. There's a left by Sims. Good strong finish by Robbie Sims.
Duran boxed more skillfully, but could not surpass Sims, who pulled out this victory on character. Roberto got another defeat, and now nobody doubted that it was the sunset of the career of Hands of Stone. At 37 years of age, Duran had a crazy idea: to win a title in the 4th division. At that time, a new star emerged in the middleweight category, American Aaron Barkley. The leader of the street gang Black Spades rose to boxing's top in a sudden and sensational way. Barkley, nicknamed the Blade, knocked out Tommy Hearns and beat some other tough guys. Bob Arum wanted to promote the new hero to the fullest. Duran was given a title shot for his past accomplishments. To put it bluntly, Arum threw him under the bus against a fighter who was 10 years his younger, stronger, and bigger. Aaron had a personal beef with Duran. 6 years earlier, Roberto had beaten his close friend Davey Moore. Barkley said, "Even if I get weak and drunk, I still won't give him the title." The experts were unanimous in their predictions. The Blade will surely split the stone. Duran's family pleaded with him to come to his senses. Compatriots who had common mates with Roberto recommended him to refuse the fight. Everyone was worried that the fight could end in tragedy. But Duran was relentless. He said he has hands of stone. But to come out voluntarily against such a monster, when everyone says to you, "Don't do it," you need to have not only hands of stone, but something else. Duran did not finish his career after beating Aaron Barkley. Like many great boxers, he fell victim to insatiable promoters and managers. They profited from his talent, but didn't allow him to save money for his retirement. Roberto continued to box because he needed to. Duran's career lasted until 2001. It was only at the age of 50 that he retired. The cause was a car accident. Nowadays, Roberto lives a quiet, peaceful life in his native Panama. But from time to time, we can see him showing up at the camp of different boxers, sharing his experiences, talking about his moves, and even sparring with the young guys. Duran became friends with all the bitter antagonists he once shared the ring with. Leonard, Hearns, Barkley, Hagler, and many others. Duran is in the Boxing Hall of Fame. His accomplishments are unmatched. He competed in 5 decades. Roberto went through many ups and downs. He got 103 victories and 70 knockouts, and to this day, he is considered the best lightweight in history. Maybe now the look of an elderly champion doesn't impress you as a once intimidating boxer. Age humbles all of us. But if you look closely, you'll see in his eyes the same image of a ruthless devil with hands of stone.